Hello everyone, my name is Paul. I work for a company called Micrographics in Cape Town, South Africa. We are an Autodesk reseller, and today I'd like to do a short video on one of my passions, which is automation and artificial intelligence within our industry. Firstly, I'd like to start off with permission of or with reference to the McLeamy curve, which is a curve that illustrates to us the effect of changes upon a BIM model at the beginning of its life going towards its end. So you can see at the bottom over here, usually there are specific phases of a building, so it will go from preliminary design, detailed design, construction documentation, construction operations. There are various ways to divvy that up, and we have different standards around the world that will represent the same sequence of events. It's pretty standard for any built asset. At the beginning of the project, we've got the ability to impact the design. So you can think right at the beginning of a design, you've got a lot of decisions to make with the conceptual design, and all the work that follows on from there will then be cumulative. It will just cascade into more and more and more effort to get that model, and the later on in the process you are, the less a design decision will impact the model. The other curve, which is in sort of mirrored to that, is the cost of design changes, where at the beginning of a project the cost of a change is low. So you've got the maximum effect at the lowest cost at the beginning of a project, and you've got the maximum cost with the lowest effect towards the end of the process. If you wanted to change at the end, it's going to be the worst for your pocket. And so you can think about this as having maximum effect of your money spent at the beginning of a project. And then there's two more curves. The one is CAD workflow, which you can see over there, and the BIM workflow, which is the one before that. So you can think about this as AutoCAD versus Revit, where the effort that goes into the design of the asset is actually done more towards the detailed end of the design, and then the construction documentation is a fast process. In comparison to that, we've got AutoCAD, where we've got the majority of the work happening within the construction documentation phase. And so the ability to impact the model during the design is a lot better for the BIM workflow. That I think we can now take as understood. But moving into the future and the present is technology that is changing how that graph looks. It's changing the effect that we can have on a model, and the entire process is being changed through artificial intelligence, through machine learning, and through automation. So now we can see that the ability to impact the model is a longer process where you've got impact, good effect of changing something, and the cost of design changes stays relatively the same shape. But in essence, you can still have a good impact on the model later in the process, although it is going to cost you a little bit more. But it gives you a bigger window to effect a change. Alright, so that is where we are going to with the new technology. It's not yet something that is a reality, and it's probably going to change over time, but this is what we need to keep track with, and this is what we need to get on board with. And then also the value creation, that was interesting also for residential. It was also from 2018 from a Skanska annual report from Autodesk University. There we can see that 21% of the value of a project is added in the preliminary design phase, 34% during the detailed design, and in total that adds up to, what does it give you, about 55%? And that is a large amount of value that you embed within the project, and that is right at the beginning of the project where you lock that in. So that would include things like noise mitigation, solar opportunities, wind, you name it, it's there. So the optimization of the design of the building to suit modern tendencies for environmental friendliness and circularity, being able to Also deconstruct the building at the end of its life comes in there. Being off the grid, that's quite popular here in South Africa. Having your own power system, water, treating your own black and grey water, reusing that water. There's a lot of opportunity to save the client money in this in this space, and to do it early on in the project. And that is really where the democratization of this artificial intelligence or machine learning or generative design comes in, where we can make the client money in the long run. So I'd just like to demonstrate for you something that I've got a little bit of experience with. It's not really a demonstration as such, just to show you that you do have something called Dynamo within Revit. It's a type of a visual program that you can access all these nodes with here in Revit, for instance, on the selection side. These are all little blocks that you can use to code your language, and basically a string that hooks up to this, a logical process. Once you get used to that, it can be challenging depending on what you are doing. Impossible unless you are a genius in certain circumstances, but that's when it comes more to generative design. So if you can imagine, for instance, that you've got a big hospital and you have operating theaters within that hospital. You want to minimize the floor space area based on some other programming with auxiliary service acting in support of those operational theaters. Then you've got quite a complex brute force attack that you're going to leverage against that hospital using generative design. Maybe you run 1 million simulations, and based across your criteria that you set for it, you'd like to have the optimal design coming out of that. And that is going to make you competitive against every other country on the planet, including the Chinese, the Americans, the English, whoever it is that you're competing against. So there you need some proper brain power, because you're going to get into statistics and into probability theory. So maybe not something for an architect, but it just illustrates again how there's so much space for somebody like a programmer, a Python programmer, to delve in against the API, program that in a mathematical sense so that you can get your statistical answer coming out of a long, protracted machine attack on that problem to give you the optimal solution. It's not automatic. It does take time and resources on your computer. So investment is going to be important. And then lastly, I'd just like to point you in the right direction over here. If you are interested in following up on this webinar and trying to see for yourself what it is that you are invested in, the first is Dynamo. Dynamo is a visual, like we just saw, a visual programming with some nodes, and this is a nice little primer that they've released. You can basically do this primer and get started. Inside here, there's also Python. With Python, you can leverage against the Revit API, and then you can actually start programming. These days, we should really discuss, although it's not an Autodesk product, something like ChatGTP, which is large language models, where you often have code in a language that you don't understand, C++, C#, whatever it is that the code was programmed in. I specifically follow somebody he's called the building coder, Jeremy Tumick. I don't understand everything he writes in C++ or in C#, but maybe I can translate it into Python using ChatGTP. So it's becoming easier these days to apply whatever code is being written onto our own models. And this is how we would ask a question. Maybe it's a multivariable input, multivariable output question we can ask of the model, and it needs to be optimized, and then we can go into the generative design side of things. This is generative design primer. Again, this is maybe a higher grade for most of us. And over here is where we can go and ask these statistical questions, and you can see a visual representation on your screen right now of an initial concept for a building, and then we'd like to have some criteria that's applied over there. So over there we can see they've got some criteria: sunlight versus environmental friendliness, and sunlight versus all these other ones. So there's a design envelope based on our criteria, and we will choose some other solution that is most pleasing to us based on those criteria. So that is why we do that million designs run through that. We don't have to do the designs. The designs are getting done by the computers. We just have to make that choice. Whereabouts are we going to suit that in? So some of this stuff has been democratized. This is difficult. This is not easy. And in most cases, and for most instances, not applicable yet, because it needs some other genius to program that and to apply that on a market that will show returns if you invest in that. So that's where the R&D comes in, right? But the R&D has been done for some instances already. One of them is the DAISY design for structural engineering. So if you are doing wooden framed houses, this will come up with an optimal solution for you. This is not free. You do need to pay for it. All right, but there's opportunity. If that is your business and you want to make money and you want to compete against the other guys that's using the same technology, that would be the way to go. And then we have got Forma. This is something that's new within Autodesk. It's based around the conceptual design of models, and this is what can help you to design your initial model better for your client so that you can gain maximum returns off that model. Based over here, we've got your area metrics, you've got sun hours, you've got daylight potential, wind analysis, microclimate, operational energy, noise, solar energy, as well as some other elements over here, and you can prepare that for your models. So I would suggest that you at least spend some time as a owner of a business to consider these technologies that are becoming available, and perhaps invest some time and money of those working for you with the skills. And maybe if you don't have the skills, invest in maybe talking to some friends in a different industry, or finding somebody with the skills to leverage then for your company, and see if you can find some other market segment where this automation and artificial intelligence can actually hit the mark for you. Either operationally on your shop floor, that you've got routines, macros basically, that make things easier for you, being able to hit the targets faster, or if you go the full hog and you go, all right, let's see, argument's sake, let's see if we can minimize the area of operating theaters in a hospital. That would be a very expensive building to put together per square meterage. If you can minimize the floor space, that might be towards your advantage. So until next time, enjoy your Autodesk software, and let's see where we can go with this technology.